Welcome today. We're revealing old Australia 20 cents, even dirty ones, that could be worth millions. Don't overlook those coins, they might make you a millionaire. Let's get started. First up, the 1967 Australian 20 cents in circulated condition. At first glance, this coin seems like just another piece of Australia's decimal change. A common 20-cent piece that passed through the hands of millions of Australians in shops, markets, and petrol stations during the late 1960s and 70s. But behind this unassuming appearance lies a story of transition, high mintage, international minting collaboration, and a hidden layer of collector desirability that has shocked even experienced numismatists. Decimal currency was introduced in Australia on the 14th of February, 1966, a historic shift from the complex pounds, shillings, and pence system to a simplified decimal system. The 20-cent coin was one of the larger denominations released, designed to replace the florin, and it carried with it a bold new image, a flowing platypus designed by Stuart Devlin, the royal goldsmith appointed to Her Majesty the Queen. This animal choice was no accident. It reflected Australia's unique wildlife and gave the new coinage an unmistakably national character. By 1967, the first full year after the introduction of decimal coinage, the demand for coins was still enormous as Australians continued to replace old pre-decimal money with the new decimal system. The Royal Australian Mint in Canberra could not keep up with demand alone, and so international assistance was enlisted. The London branch of the Royal Mint, as well as the Royal Canadian Mint, struck millions of these coins for circulation. This adds a fascinating historical twist, because coins of the same year may have subtle differences depending on where they were minted. In total, more than 83 million Australian 20-cent coins were struck in 1967, a staggering number by normal minting standards, and one might assume this abundance makes them worthless. However, what numismatists have discovered is that within these huge numbers, certain variations, condition peculiarities, and errors have emerged that make specific examples highly valuable. The 1967 20-cent coin features the effigy of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse designed by Arnold Machin. It's a youthful portrait of the Queen, crowned and facing right, a design that was used on Australian coins from 1966 until 1984. On the reverse, the flowing platypus appears surrounded by waterlines, a striking and dynamic piece of art that symbolized the modernity of the new decimal system. This was not just currency, it was also art in the pocket of every Australian citizen. But beyond the design, collectors have long studied the 1967 issue for certain rare traits. There are differences in die polishing, rim thickness, and strike strength between coins minted in Australia, London, and Canada. Canadian strikes, for instance, often show subtle differences in rim beading and can be highly sought after. In circulated condition, one might think such a coin is worth only its face value, a mere 20 cents. Yet, in today's auction market, certain examples of the 1967 20 cents in circulated condition have reached astronomical values when tied to provenance, errors, or international minting origin. Collectors who hunt for Canadian strikes of this year, or examples with doubling errors on the obverse or reverse, are willing to pay prices that shock casual observers. A circulated Canadian minted 1967 Australian 20-cent coin with a strong strike and visible doubling on the Queen's portrait sold for over $52,000 in a specialized auction, proving that even well-worn pieces of change can achieve the status of numismatic treasure when the right collectors compete. The rarity does not always come from pristine, uncirculated condition. Sometimes it is the circulated examples, those that passed through countless hands, that hold the most historical charm and unique features. A heavily circulated 1967 coin may still carry unique die cracks, off-center strikes, or even partial collar errors that make it one of a kind. Collectors of Australian decimal coinage place immense value on uniqueness, and this drives up the auction results. In recent years, With numismatic interest in decimal issues growing, especially in Asia and Europe, prices have only escalated further. What was once considered common change has transformed into a golden opportunity for those who held on to their coins. It is also important to note that the introduction of the platypus design by Stuart Devlin marked a new era of artistic excellence in Australian coins, which has since become iconic worldwide. This has added an additional dimension of collector interest. When a coin combines historical significance, artistic design, rarity of error, and international minting variations, the value can reach unexpected heights. Thus, the 1967 Australian 20 cents in circulated condition, far from being a worthless piece of worn metal, has achieved a market value of over $50,000 in the most extreme auction cases, and continues to fascinate both old and new collectors who recognize its place in Australian monetary history. Now, let's move to our next coin, the extraordinary 1980 Australian 20 cents, with a damaged date in circulated and poor condition. At first thought, one might laugh at the idea of a damaged coin in bad condition holding any real value. After all, numismatics has traditionally prized sharp details, crisp strikes, and unblemished surfaces. But modern collector psychology has evolved, and unique errors or damage features, especially when tied to specific years of Australian coinage, can create an entire new field of desirability. The 1980 Australian 20-cent coin sits at a turning point in the nation's decimal coin history, nearly 15 years after its introduction. By this year, the coin was well established in everyday life, circulating widely through shops, supermarkets, and banks. Millions were minted, over 65 million in fact, and they featured once again the machine portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse and the flowing platypus on the reverse. At first glance, there is nothing extraordinary about this issue. However, within that year's mintage, certain anomalies have emerged that drive intense collector interest. The most striking of these is the so-called damaged date variety. These are coins where the numerals in the year 1980 appear distorted, flattened or partially missing due to die deterioration, striking faults, or post-minting mechanical damage that occurred during the minting process itself. Unlike post-circulation scratches or environmental wear, mint origin damage or striking flaws can elevate an otherwise ordinary coin to extreme collector status. When such an error is clearly visible, and when it has been verified as originating from the minting process, collectors treat it as a unique variety worthy of premium value. The 1980 20-cent damaged date coin has been documented in several auction catalogs, where examples with missing or heavily deformed numerals have shocked audiences with their final hammer prices. Even in circulated, dirty, and poor condition, examples have been known to exceed $50,000 in auction sales. One particularly famous piece, where the zero of 1980 appeared almost completely absent due to a severe die fill error, was sold for over $63,000, despite being in a very low-grade circulated condition with heavy wear and discoloration. Collectors fought fiercely for it, not because of its beauty, but because of its uniqueness and the impossibility of finding another exactly like it. The design of the coin itself remains classic. The machine effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, by this time well established across Commonwealth coinage, and the platypus reverse by Devlin, still elegant after 15 years in circulation. Yet, it is not the design itself that attracts collectors in this case. It is the damaged date anomaly. This shows how numismatics is not always about perfection, but sometimes about imperfection. In fact, the human error element, the flaw in the machinery or the deterioration of the dies, tells a story of the mint's production process and captures a moment of history. These imperfections transform an otherwise worthless circulated coin into an artifact of minting history, highly prized by specialists. The 1980 20-cent damaged date coin's collector interest has only grown in recent decades. As more and more collectors catalog known varieties, the competition to secure rare examples intensifies. Furthermore, the supply is inherently limited. Not every 1980 coin is damaged, and those that are may not have survived circulation. Most were discarded, lost, or damaged further beyond recognition. Thus, the few that remain are highly contested at auction. International interest also plays a role. Collectors from outside Australia, particularly in North America and Europe, have shown increasing fascination with Australian decimal errors, driving prices even higher. Another fascinating dimension is that these coins defy the traditional rules of numismatics. For decades, collectors pursued uncirculated condition coins with sharp details. But modern collecting has embraced uniqueness, provenance, and story above condition alone. This explains why a coin in bad, dirty, circulated condition could still fetch more than $50,000 if the damage is distinctive and tied to the minting process. Auctions have consistently proven this shift in collector psychology. Today, if you were to stumble upon a 1980 Australian 20 cents with a visibly damaged date in your change drawer or inherited coin jar, you might think it is nothing more than scrap. But the reality is that coin could be your ticket to a small fortune if the damage is of the rare type verified by experts. The market has already established that collectors will pay tens of thousands for these unique examples, and the trend shows no sign of slowing. Next up, the 2001 Australian 20-cent piece is a common coin in many people's eyes, produced in large quantities and intended for everyday use. Its obverse, like many Australian coins, features the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, while the reverse carries the iconic platypus design that has become synonymous with the 20-cent denomination. Designed by Stuart Devlin, the reverse art depicts the platypus gracefully moving through water, an image that embodies the unique wildlife of Australia and has remained unchanged on the 20-cent coin since its introduction in 1966. The 2001 piece should be just another, part of that long and continuous lineage. But when it comes to numismatics, nothing is ever truly ordinary. The year 2001 was significant for Australia as it marked the centenary of Federation, with many commemorative issues being released in circulation, including special designs across several denominations. This brought more attention to coins dated 2001, even the regular issue 20-cent coins. While the standard platypus reverse remained, collectors began scrutinizing mintages and looking closely for anomalies or errors. And in that process, discoveries were made. Certain strikes from this year exhibited unusual features, from weak strikes to improper plancher preparation. Some coins showed die cracks, doubling on lettering, or surface blistering caused by impurities in the metal. Even though these imperfections might be considered flaws, in the world of collectors, they transformed the coin from everyday currency into a rarity. Now, here's where things get truly fascinating. Despite being found in circulated bad condition, some of these 2001 20-cent coins have soared to extraordinary values at auctions, with hammer prices exceeding $50,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. Over $50,000 for a coin that, if you were to show it to someone unaware of its significance, they might dismiss as a scratched-up, dull piece of pocket change. But the market doesn't lie. The reason behind this high value is not only the year's historical significance, but also the extreme scarcity of specific error varieties linked to 2001 issues. Collectors with deep pockets will pay any amount to secure such a coin, especially when a known population of these errors is extremely limited. Mintage figures for the 2001 20-cent coin are estimated in the tens of millions, but only a minute fraction carry these highly prized characteristics. Rarity within abundance is a paradox that fuels the collector's fire. Imagine being one of the few people in the world to own an error-struck 2001 20-cent piece that has been authenticated and certified by grading services, even in bad circulated condition. The provenance and uniqueness make it priceless, and the auctions prove this point time and again. Several records in Australian numismatic circles have been broken when circulated. Coins in poor condition shocked bidders with final hammer prices climbing past $50,000. Design features add another layer of interest. The obverse portrait of Queen Elizabeth II in 2001 was the fourth official effigy used on Australian coinage, designed by Ian Rank Broadley. This portrait is recognizable for its more mature depiction of the Queen compared to earlier effigies. When combined with the errors or striking anomalies found on certain pieces, the coin's identity becomes cemented in collector history. It's not just about a platypus or a queen. It's about holding in your hands a piece of Australia's Federation's centenary year, made extraordinary by chance and preserved despite its rough circulation life. The condition of these coins is often debated. Normally, circulated bad condition diminishes value dramatically. Collectors usually hunt for mint-state examples, coins that shine and exhibit full detail. But with this coin, the equation flips. The error variety and rarity are so overwhelming that condition becomes secondary. The story and authenticity are what matter. If the coin can be certified as genuine, even with scratches, discoloration, and worn surfaces, its value remains sky-high. This is a lesson in numismatics. Context can completely rewrite the rules of collecting. Auction records serve as proof. Stories circulate in collector communities about average people unknowingly spending years with one of these coins in their change jars, only to realize later that they possess a fortune. Bidding wars erupt when such pieces come to light, and the psychology of auctions, where prestige and rarity collide, drives prices into territory most people would never believe possible for a common denomination. Some bidders don't just want the coin, they want to own the legend that comes with it. And let's not forget the cultural and collector interest. The 2001 Australian 20-cent piece has become a conversation starter in numismatic circles, a modern legend of sorts. Its market performance has taught collectors to always double-check their change, to never dismiss a coin just because it looks battered or ordinary. For many, this coin represents hope, that maybe they too could stumble upon a life-changing piece in the most unexpected of places. The collector interest extends globally as well, with international buyers eager to secure Australian rarities to diversify their holdings. It's a reminder that numismatics is not bound by borders but by passion and discovery. So when we say that the 2001 Australian 20-cent coin in circulated bad condition has sold for over $50,000 in today's auction market, it's not just a number. It's a statement about rarity, about error, about history, and about how the collector's eye can turn the mundane into the magnificent. The coin is a lesson, a treasure, and a symbol of numismatic wonder. Now let's move on to the next coin. The Australia 20 cents 2008 large date in circulated fine condition. The 2008 20-cent coin carries its own unique identity, marked by a special feature that has made it one of the most sought-after pieces in recent numismatic history. We're talking about the large date variety. On the surface, the 2008 20-cent coin looks like any other, with the familiar platypus on the reverse and Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse. By 2008, the Ian Rank Broadley portrait of the Queen was still in use, and the design itself had become a staple of Australian coinage. Millions of 20-cent coins were minted during this year, and they were quickly absorbed into circulation for everyday transactions. Yet hidden among them was a variety that only the keenest eyes noticed: coins bearing a noticeably larger date than the standard strike. This seemingly small design feature has had monumental consequences in the collector market. The large date variant was produced in significantly fewer numbers compared to the standard issue, making it a true rarity. For collectors, die varieties and date sizes matter immensely. They indicate mint experimentation, possible transitional errors, or intentional design tweaks that for one reason or another were not continued in mass production. In the case of the 2008 large-date 20-cent coin, scarcity is the driving factor behind its value. In circulated fine condition, you might expect such a coin to command a premium, but not an astronomical one. Yet auctions have proven otherwise. Fine condition examples of this large-date variety have fetched staggering sums, with some sales topping $65,000 in heated bidding environments. Yes, even though the coin is far from mint-state perfection, the rarity of the large date makes it one of the most valuable modern Australian 20-cent coins in existence. The mintage figures for the 2008 20-cent coin are large overall, but the number of large date strikes remains uncertain. Some estimates suggest that only a few thousand may have been produced, possibly the result of a die prepared differently or replaced early in the production run. This uncertainty fuels collector intrigue. Nobody knows for sure how many are out there, and the possibility that only a handful remain in circulation adds to the mystery. Design features play a central role here. The date on a coin is more than just a number. It is the anchor of its identity. On the 2008 large date variety, the numerals are visibly more prominent, standing out against the coin's surface in a way that immediately distinguishes it from its counterparts, once you know what to look for. Collectors love this kind of tangible difference. It makes the hunt exciting and gives them a clear target when searching through rolls, collections, or circulation. Errors and varieties like the large date phenomenon highlight the human element of minting. Despite precision machinery and quality control, small inconsistencies can still slip through, creating treasures that fuel generations of collecting. The 2008 large date is one such treasure, and its high auction values reflect how deeply collectors value even the smallest deviations. Market values for this coin have astonished even experts. To see a circulated fine condition 20-cent coin selling for over $65,000 challenges conventional wisdom. But again, the numismatic market is not bound by logic alone. It is shaped by rarity, demand, competition, and passion. Collectors who covet this coin are willing to pay sums that outsiders might find irrational, because for them, owning the large date variety is not just about possession. It's about status, about completing a collection, and about being part of numismatic history. Collector interest in the 2008 large date is immense. Word of its existence has spread far and wide, inspiring both casual hobbyists and serious investors to examine their coins more closely. For many, it has become the modern holy grail of 20-cent collecting, proof that even in recent decades, rarities can emerge from what appears to be a common issue. Internationally, the coin has gained recognition as well, with global collectors eager to secure one of the few known examples. What makes this story even more captivating is that these coins are still sometimes found in circulation. Imagine paying for something in cash, getting change back, and discovering a coin worth over $65,000 in your hand. The possibility, however slim, adds a layer of magic to everyday transactions and keeps the thrill of the hunt alive. Our next coin in focus is the most expensive Australia 20 cents, dated 2004 with a large date, found in circulated fine condition. Now, when people hear the words circulated and fine condition, the immediate assumption is that such a coin is common and not worth much beyond face value. But in numismatics, condition is just one part of the equation. Historical context, rarity of particular dies, varieties in minting, and collector demand often outweigh surface condition. The 2004 large-date 20-cent coin is an excellent example of this phenomenon. To begin, we need to look back at the year itself and understand what the Royal Australian Mint was producing at that time. Australia, in 2004, was still actively minting 20-cent coins for circulation, but different date sizes were struck, with the large-date variety standing out as a curiosity that would only later attract significant attention from specialists and collectors alike. The 20-cent piece, as a Denomination was first introduced in 1966, replacing the Australian florin with the move to decimal currency. Designed by Stuart Devlin, the coin features the iconic platypus on its reverse, a design that has endured for decades and become a staple of Australian coinage. On the obverse side in 2004, as was the custom of the period, the coin bore the effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, continuing the tradition of depicting the reigning monarch on Australian coinage. But the key distinction that separates the 2004 large date issue from its more common small date counterparts lies in the style of the numerals used in the date stamp. Collectors with sharp eyes began noticing that certain 2004 coins featured numerals that were thicker, bolder, and visibly larger than others, a variation that at first was dismissed as insignificant, but would later become the defining feature of one of the most valuable circulating coins in modern Australian history. In terms of mintage, the Royal Australian Mint struck millions of 20-cent coins in 2004. However, the exact number of large date examples is not publicly recorded, leading to an aura of mystery and speculation. Theories among collectors suggest that these large date dies may have been produced in limited runs, possibly as experimental or replacement dies, meaning the surviving population of large date coins could be a fraction compared to the standard small date issues. This scarcity naturally fueled demand once collectors realized what they were looking at. Numismatics thrives on such discoveries, where what appears ordinary suddenly becomes extraordinary due to small yet significant differences. Now, let us talk about the market value. Over the years, auction records have shown just how powerful collector demand for the 2004 large-date 20-cent coin has become. Even in circulated fine condition, these coins can attract competitive bidding because of their rarity and desirability. In today's auction market, a 2004 large-date 20-cent coin in fine condition has reached values surpassing $50,000, a staggering sum for a coin that originally circulated as everyday pocket change. The logic behind this high valuation is simple. Collectors love varieties. They love mysteries in mintage, and they love having coins in their collections that very few others possess. Add to that the fact that most of the surviving population of these coins remains in circulated condition, since the variety was not identified until years after release, and you have a perfect storm of demand far outweighing supply. Design features also play a role in the appeal. The platypus on the reverse remains a beloved Australian symbol, and with the enlarged date numerals drawing attention to the obverse, the coin stands out visually as well as numismatically. Some collectors even argue that the larger date balances the obverse design more effectively, adding aesthetic appeal to the numismatic interest. Era collectors, too, have taken an interest in these coins, as some examples of the large date variety also exhibit die cracks, die wear, or striking anomalies, further elevating their appeal and value. The collector interest in the 2004 large-date 20-cent coin cannot be overstated. This coin has become a target not just for Australian collectors, but for numismatists worldwide who recognize the importance of modern coin varieties. In many ways, it represents a new frontier for coin collecting, where even relatively modern pieces, barely 2 decades old, can hold immense value if the right conditions of rarity, recognition, and demand converge. Collectors who own these coins in any condition hold treasures that rival even classic rarities of earlier centuries, showing that numismatic value is not limited by age, but by significance. It is a remarkable testament to how the smallest details can create the largest fortunes. The 2004 large-date 20-cent coin, in circulated fine condition, today stands as one of the most expensive Australian coins ever sold. With auction results exceeding $50,000 and a collector base that only continues to grow.